Generation C. Who the hell are Generation C? Generation C are digital natives. They love communicating digitally. They are the first generation in history that's actively growing as more people get into the digital mediums. And as such, it's a state of mind. It's totally psychographic. And I want to say this again, it is nothing, to be clear, nothing to do with age. This is an ageless generation bound by a love of digital stuff. So what does the C stand for? The C stands for control. And I'd like to contextualize that by showing what was the underlying motivation, the being of each generation, and show the difference between what a generation is being and what they're doing, and how important that concept and difference is to understanding how generations will evolve, change and impact on business. So, firstly, we're going to look at the boomers. The boomers, their soul was freedom. Now, of course, they're characterized when they're growing up as being into drugs and rock and roll and community and all that stuff. But we all know that they've grown up and they're doing different things today than what they were doing then. Now, you could predict how they were going to come out and evolve if you really looked at their soul, and their soul is about freedom. Generation X, their motivation, their unifier is experience, expressed by the rise globally of travel as an industry internationally during the 80s and early 90s. Generation Y's soul is interactivity. Their driver, they were the first generation that were growing up in a world where they were interacting digitally on a regular basis. But their driver was interactivity. Now Generation C, because Generation C are often confused with Generation Y. There is a critical difference between these two generations. Generation C are trying to control the number of choices available to them in the digital world around their identity. In other words, they have a very proactive relationship with the digital world. They're reaching out and controlling it. By contrast, Generation Y were just happy that it was there and happy to use it as an interactive tool. So Generation C are trying to tame the beast. Generation Y are just happy to live with it and have a more functional relationship with the digital world. And the reason I'm just teasing out that as one of many examples is that simple misunderstanding will lead to a lot of errors in terms of how business operates. So what we're going to explore now is a whole load of practical pieces on the impact of Generation C on different businesses. So once again, to wrap up, the sole motivation of boomers was freedom. Generation X was experience. Generation Y is interaction. Generation C is control. And in order to understand the implications for business, we have to first drive and understand a generation from their soul, not just from what they're doing at a moment in time. Thank you for listening.